Great. Okay. Well, let's kick things off then. So, hi there. Welcome, everyone. And firstly, thank you so much for joining today's webinar. For those of you that haven't joined our webinars before, my name is Sally McDonald, and I'm one of the client services people here at Alterian in our Bristol office. This month on our webinar series, I'm delighted to have back to the forum Alex Thompson, who's joining us today. I'm sure some of you know Alex already. Alex is one of our senior consultants in professional services and has worked with customers across the globe since he joined Alterian in 2010. And today, Alex will be taking us through the approach that Alterian use in a customer opportunity workshop, where we identify high-level opportunities to interact with your customer base more effectively. There will, of course, be some time at the end of the presentation from Alex today for some questions and answers. So if you do have any questions that you can think of during the presentation, then you'll find the Q&A section chat box at the top of your screen. And if you can't find that, then please do email myself. And my email is customersuccess@alterian.com. And I'll be monitoring this during Alex's presentation. And then secondly, we will be recording the session today for you guys to refer back to. So please don't worry about making lots of notes unless, of course, you'd like to. And I'll make sure that the recording is distributed next week via the follow-up email and also put onto the Alterian Academy. So with all of that said, I'll now hand over to Alex, who will be running through his presentation today. So if I just unmute you, Alex, over to you.
Great, thanks, Sally, and thanks to you guys for joining as well. As Sally said, I'm just going to spend the next 20 minutes running through our approach to how we help our customers and partners identify opportunities within their customer databases, but also to better use our software. So let me just get started. So what is a customer opportunity workshop? So it's a way to identify a way to better utilize your data, the Alterian software, and also the channels that you address your customers with. It gives you the opportunity to identify ways to better market to your customers and ultimately help progress towards achieving the KPIs that you want to achieve as a business, but also personally as marketers yourselves. And one main thing about them is they're always very collaborative, hands-on exercises with whiteboarding, lots of post-it notes, and a good range of people in the room is quite important. At the end of the process, you want to come up with a roadmap towards achieving your goals, and it's a precursor to some more detailed workshops that you might want to do. So really it's to try and get a broad view across your data, your usage of your marketing software, to help you basically interact better with your campaigns and with your customers and have better campaigning. So what I'm going to run through is a few of those exercises, just as some examples. Some of the benefits of each of those exercises are different ways that we might approach them. And I'm going to deep dive into one specifically around RFM analysis. And then I'm going to talk a bit about some of the other processes. So workshop activity is divided into three broad areas. So the first one is all focused around identifying opportunity with the way that your customers interact with you and also the way that you as a brand would market to your customers, looking at things like different revenue opportunities within the data and also the channel mix that you use. So that's the first kind of group, is identifying opportunity. Then we go through a process of identifying best use of our software, particularly around the marketing lifecycle, going from insights through to planning, execution, and measurement. And then the final set of activities is around focusing on those learnings and developing a plan that will give you some quick wins of things that you can achieve now, but also kind of stepping stones towards more strategic goals that you might have. So before you embark on any of those activities, it's always a good idea to identify what your goals are as a business, but also your goals as a marketing team as well. And often it sounds like these would be really obvious, but particularly if you've got a quite diverse group of people in the workshops, it's good to make sure everyone's on the same page. And also we refer back to these at the end of the process with the planning stages of summarizing things. So defining your goals up front really helps you understand what needs to be achieved, better understanding of what motivates the audience. So you might be running this yourselves as a group of marketers, or if you might be running this on behalf of other people and guiding them through that process. And as I said, it's always good to refer back to those original goals when you get to the end of the process. So that's the very first step, is defining goals. Then we move into a series of activities to identify different opportunities. And as I said earlier, these are great if they're very collaborative, using whiteboards, using lots of post-it notes, and getting a broad spectrum of people in the room as well. Really helps with this. So one of the first examples of exercises I'm going to run through is just a way of mapping out how your customers interact with you, plus how you market to your customers. And really this is just from a perception point of view of people that might be in the room from the workshop. And there's a couple of axes on here. So on the y-axis on the left-hand side here, there's kind of an arbitrary interaction index, but it's basically a lower score is it's a more passive action. So maybe sending someone a newsletter or a customer reading a newsletter, it's just general information. Whereas something with a higher score might be a bit more active, like a customer receiving some goods that maybe they've purchased from you, or having an actual conversation with someone over a phone. And along the bottom axis here, we've got different stages of a typical customer life cycle. So from awareness to conversion, loyalty, churn, and then potentially win back. And the key thing here is you would calibrate this beforehand to a typical customer life cycle for your organization. And then the exercise is identifying points in a life cycle that a customer would interact with you. Okay, so maybe in awareness, it's Google searching or responding to Facebook ads. Maybe in that kind of loyalty advocacy phase, it might be them trying to get in touch with you with some kind of service question. So mapping that out from a customer driven interactions, and then taking another viewpoint on that and looking at your brand initiated communications. So things that you're sending to the customer, which might be something like a welcome email, maybe some transactional notifications after they've purchased something if you're e-commerce, through to finally any win-back campaigns you have. And the aim of this exercise is just to identify where there's any potential disconnect. So, for example, here, where the customer is heavily interacting with you, but perhaps your messaging isn't quite balanced with that. And then the third stage with this is to say, well, if you were to readdress that, how could we better be aligned with our customers with our brand initiated communications? So it might be, for example, introducing a welcome program, so it's going to be a bit more engaging than just a single registration email. And it might be activities around loss prevention when you get to the end of someone's loyalty. So what indicators can you look at to predict churn? So again, it's kind of perception amongst the people in the room, but it is useful to identify any big gaps. And we'll refer back to this at the end of the process when we get to planning, because it'll help you identify perhaps which initiatives you might want to work on first. Okay. So just in summary, highlights any potential disconnect between customers and brand initiated communications. It's great for aligning perception within the marketing team, particularly if you're kind of siloed into acquisition, retention, and different teams looking at different areas or maybe different products. You can get a view of what other people are doing. And yes, it's good to refer back to when we start to put together a plan of what initiatives you might want to undertake to better be aligned with your customers. So that was one exercise. The next exercise, which is really great to go through, is to take a look at the data that you have available to you. So the Alterian software is very data-driven. We've got lots of great tools in there to utilize the data. And it's good to get a bit more of a broader view of the data that's available to you right now within your software, but also other data that may be available within your organization that you just don't have access to right now as a marketer, but would be really useful if you did and will help you achieve maybe some of your more longer term goals. So looking at data, kind of look at it at two kind of broad areas. One is speed and usage. So slow data, which would be more on a historical view of transactions, geodemographic data, but historic data or data doesn't change that quickly, maybe just every 24 hours. So that gives you your depth analysis. But also through to fast data, so things that might be changing in the moment, which might be someone doing some activity maybe on your website or someone interacting with someone in a call center. There's lots of information there that as a marketer being able to utilize would help you better market to your customers. So there's data speed and usage, and then also data types, so addressable contacts, behavioral data from your customers, maybe web browsing data or product usage data, transactional data if they're making purchases from you or have subscriptions that they're renewing, and then also attitudinal data as well. So how likely are they to recommend you to a friend? Do they have any specific service issues that might make them unhappy or happy with your products? So it's viewing the data rather than at a table and granular field level. More it is kind of usage and types. And then it's an exercise of identifying for each type of data, the data available that's slow and historic and which fields are available or data types that are available, and then intraday and also in the moment. And you'll notice on here that some are in a darker color. They'd be the ones that are available to you right now, perhaps in your marketing database and things that you use as a marketer day to day. But then there's some that are grayed out, which are in your organization, but perhaps not available to you right now. So they might be things like on transactions. You've perhaps got all of the historic transactions and transactions as they come in every day, but you might not have a way to perhaps address someone at the point in time that they abandon a basket, for example. So that would be something that's available in your organization, but not quite available to you as a marketer. So it gives you something to work towards that you might want to do in the future. So that's data availability. So it highlights key areas of data type and availability, opens up the discussion beyond just source and field level data, helps identify opportunity. It identifies the current data available to you plus the potential data that you might be able to get access to. So then the next exercise that's really useful is more taking a look at your customer base. So we've taken a look at high-level inbound communications and customers, interactions and outbound messaging from brand initiated. We took a look at the data that's available. Now this is looking at your customers, and I've taken an example from retail here, but you'd obviously potentially want to calibrate these metrics of recency and frequency depending on your organization or the products that you're selling. So we can see we've got recency here. So last 90 days, 90 to 365, and then a year through to 18 months. And then across the top here, we've got different axes for 1 order, 2 to 4 orders, and 5 orders plus. Obviously, this is calibrated for the data, the sample data I ran it on, but you would do that for yours. And these are equal third groups as well. So you'd have a third of your customers in the bottom group, a third in the middle, and then a third in the top. And what it allows you to do is easily identify your most loyal customers, top right-hand corner, through to your least valuable, least loyal customers in the bottom left. And it's a simple way to just get a quick view, if you're planning any initiatives and strategy, where the focus should perhaps be from a return and revenue point of view. So looking at that in a bit more detail, actually run on some numbers, and these are all generated using our cross-tabulation reports in our analytics software, and then it's just output to an Excel spreadsheet here. So if I take some highlights from here, if I was to look at my most loyal customers, which is this green view here, they account for 25% of the base, but they actually generate 65% of my total revenue over a 12-month or 18-month period. And their average spend of each of those customers is $731. Now, if I can compare them to the bottom left-hand corner, which I've kind of turned lost causes here, again, it's about the same size of the group, 26% of the audience, but they only have an average spend of $65, and actually they only account in a 18-month period to just 5% of my revenue. So from a marketing point of view, it's probably better that I focus my efforts on the more valuable people up in the top right-hand corner rather than the bottom left down here. Okay. So drilling into that most loyal group, the next exercise that we run through is just a bit of a deep dive on that group. So how's that group changed perhaps over 18 months on 18 months period? So you can see here that 400,000, so about half of those customers were retained, so they just stayed in that most loyal group period on period. But some of them changed. So 200,000 of those became loyal. So they're already customers, they just migrated up to a more loyal group. 265,000 were brand new acquisitions, so I had to acquire them, and obviously there's the cost associated to that. And that gave me my my total audience. But I also lost some people along the way as well. So about the same number of people that I went out and acquired, I actually completely lost from my business at the same time. And some people moved down to lower bands. Now, what the previous slide told me with the grids was how much each of those changing groups was worth. So I can see that people were lost, how much revenue that was lost as far as lost spend, and also people that moved down a group, I can see that their spend on average drops 50%. And I can see the increases here. So it allows me from that to start to form some strategies or initiatives that I might want to undertake to address any loss at those groups, or maximize on any potential uplift on new people into that group. So you can see here, for example, if I deploy some upsell initiatives and then manage to increase that by 5% on my existing loyal customers, that would give me an additional $11 million worth of revenue. But looking at reducing retention and getting a 10% uplift on retention would actually give me $21 million of additional revenue. So if I was to, I can't achieve everything all in one go, and I have to prioritize things, perhaps this is showing me that retention is going to be the key place to start. And then from that information, I can then start to form out a bit of a plan and some ideas that I might want to have initiatives for those. So you can see for this band here, I've got my loyal customers, I've got the potential high-level strategy of retain and grow that I might want to approach, I've got their total value, and then I've got some initiatives here from a campaigning point of view, an insight point of view, to help achieve that additional revenue growth. And then I can do the same for each of the others. But what you'll notice is with my loyal customers, actually it's going to be easier to generate more revenue than my lost causes or my lapsed customers, where the potential opportunity and the amount of effort and offers and things like that I'd have to go to re-engage with those people is obviously a lot more of a uphill struggle. Okay, so that's just it's a great way of looking at the customer data plus some of the activities that we've identified in the other exercises to start to form it around different target groups. Okay, and then the final thing here is really just looking at different touch points and channels that you might wish to use. So looking at brand initiated channels, customer initiated channels, and then social and partner channels as well. And this is just an exercise to identify what those are. Some of those you might be using as a marketer directly now. Some of them you might not be able to address via them, but your customers might be using them to interact with you. And for each of those, identifying where the inbound, outbound volume is, and then the cost conversion and revenue contribution that each of those brings. And then it allows you to highlight where there's any potential opportunity where you're not maximizing the most out of the channel that's potentially really responsive, but it might not be something you're addressing directly as a marketer, but your customers are. Okay. So that was the first step, which is really focused on activity and the data and the customers. And then the next set of activities is to look at usage of software. And from an Alterian point of view and a campaign lifecycle, we look at these four key areas: insights and analysis. So it's understanding past performance, segmentation, where the opportunities are within your data. Then moving through to planning and design. So designing your campaigns, looking at channel mix, how many contact waves, that kind of thing. Through to execution. So how do you record what's been sent, looking at the responses and automation. And then finally measuring as well. So making sure that you've got that kind of closed loop where you can go through an iterative cycle of improvement with your campaigns. And there's two broad areas of that: the analysis side and the campaign management side. Okay, so this exercise is really about running through each of those activities, and you ultimately want to be balanced across all of those four, because it doesn't matter how good your insights and analysis is, if you can't execute on it effectively, you're not going to be making the most of it. So it aligns functionality with your marketing business as usual operations, aids discussion points on key activities, helps identify any current pain points or opportunities for future development. And the key point is you want to be aligned across each of those points as far as making sure your measurements as sophisticated as your execution and vice versa. And then the final piece is to bring those key workshops together and the outputs of those into a plan. So it needs to be a plan that's actionable. So you can see here, we've got our goals that we identified at the start, top right hand corner. So they're the things that we're working towards. We've got different activities themed around those four areas of campaign lifecycle or campaign development lifecycle. And then what you would potentially calibrate for your own business is the customer lifecycle along the bottom. And then you can see here there's different initiatives that we've identified to work towards those goals. And some are quite easy. Perhaps they're developing some reporting. Some of them might be more of a stretch goal to work towards, such as optimizing frequency of contacts to your customer base. So there's more you need to know about your customers. But you band these into kind of near-term, mid-term, and long-term. And it's really important to review this as you start working towards those. So that kind of summarizes just some of those activities that we find useful to undertake with our customers. So thank you for your time, and back over to Sally. Are there any questions?
Great, thanks for that, Alex. That was really interesting, and I know I certainly got a lot out of the presentation, so thank you. And yes, we did have a question that came through just whilst you were presenting. It was regarding the RFM analysis. Would you do that as a single piece of analysis across all customers? That was the question that was sent through.
Okay. Yeah. So you need to think about um, your business first, and you might want to decide to split it out. If you're an organization that has different brands, you might want to do that at a brand level, because you may have customers that the makeup of the customer base might be different by brand.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an organization that operates in multiple regions, different countries, you might want to do that per country. And it's good if you break it out by brand or product group or country, because then you can start to benchmark one against the other by looking at those frequency and recency metrics.
Great, thanks for that, Alex. And yeah, one more question. Who should be involved in the workshop that you mentioned?
So really anyone that has the interaction with your customers and your marketing activity, and a broader spectrum as possible. Obviously, you don't want too many people in the room, but kind of, at least if you've got sort of 5 or 6, or and taking them from different parts of the organization can be useful. So you might have someone that perhaps doesn't sit within marketing, but is heavily involved in running, say, a contact center.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of person's useful to have in the room, because they just give you a different perspective on things just outside your direct marketing team.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thanks, Alex. Brilliant. I'm just going to have a quick look again in the Q&A box and just check the inbox. And yeah, I think we're looking good for now. So we'll wrap up here. We both just like to say thank you so much for everyone for joining the webinar today. We hope you found it informative and worthwhile. And myself and Alex would love to help if you've got any further questions as well, as of course your usual contact persons in Alterian. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions on the session today. My email address is customersuccess@alterian.com. And indeed, if you've got any further ideas for future subjects or content, I'd love to hear from you on that as well. So thanks again. Have a great rest of week, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.